After Dark, brought to you by Barry Sable and friends. And to start the show off, Uncle Barry, take a minute to compose yourself. You were phenomenal today. Let's start it off with one of the segments that one of our new sponsors is going to be doing very shortly. Freewheeling with Peter Mimo. Hit it, Pete.
All right, Lar, thank you very much for the introduction. Give me the right camera angle here. I want to make sure that I'm ready for the freewheeling segment. I've got to put the shades on. I got to get the Oakleys on. And we got to really kill this. Uncle Barry and I have been on the radio for a year now.
Yep.
I don't know how we've gotten here, but I'll tell you one thing. We have become very astute in the world of politics. We know what's going on. The information that we present here is factual information. It's information that's been researched. We're not telling people exactly who to vote for. Everybody's situation is different when it comes to voting. But what we are saying is here is what's actually going on. The truth tellers are on this station, and we're trying to get the message out so that people can make informed choices. And all I hear out in the public, and Barry sees a lot more people than I do. I'm a little reclusive at times. Barry is...
Yeah, when the golf course playing 18, there's only like 80 guys playing at that
Seen
time.
on or near golf courses for sure,
right.
Absolutely. If there was a wanted poster, that's what it would say.
Exactly.
But, all we hear is about this Trump hate. And here's what I have to say to the Trump haters. Nobody cares if you hate Donald Trump. Well, maybe your wife and your dog. But other than that, no one cares. What we care about are what policies are going to be good for you, your family, your neighbors, your kids, your grandkids, the rest of the people in the world, not your selfish hate. We all hate certain things. We all despise certain things. We can't let that get in the way of making a decision that's going to put our country back on track. And that's the freewheeling segment for today. We got to dispel this Trump hate. It's not about who you hate. It's about what are the best policies for the American people and the people in the world. You know, there's some world leaders that say the only hope the world has right now is Donald Trump.
Yep.
Now, that might be a little extreme, but I think there's some merit to that.
Well, you know something, Peter? The problem really exists is the media. The media, the media, the media. If the media just told the truth. I mean, take any of these issues. Take the border. How could any human being disagree that the border should be closed? Now, I heard Chris Clem on this morning, who's been a guest on our show, and he was talking about the northern border. They have major problems up there as well. And Canada, and someone asked him on his interview, why are they coming in through Canada? Because Canada is lax on letting people enter their country. This is not healthy for the United States. And the only way that goes away is if you have someone at the helm that says to Canada, we're not going to put up with this nonsense. If you don't take care of it, we will. So right now, we just have the two sides of our country that people from everywhere and anywhere are entering our country.
And don't you think there's going to be a big rush now that they think Trump may be taking over? And you know what happens on day one? You're going to find out how quickly Trump don't need Congress in order to shut that border down. That border will be secure in 48 hours. I really believe that.
Yep.
And I believe he'll also get the
100%.
wall completed one way or another. Yep. So much for all the nonsense coming out of Biden and the administration about they don't have the power to do anything about the border. Of course they have power to do something about the border. We knew what Trump did with the border. It was secure. All he had to do was leave it alone.
Yeah, well, my question to you is, between the border and obviously the media and people agreeing with all of the stipulations that Trump has in mind, is anybody going to allow this guy to get elected? With the cheating that I'm concerned about, is anybody going to allow this guy to get elected? You know, Peter, I talk to so many people all the time when I'm out in the street and I'm out in different places. And I ask people, what are your thoughts on Donald Trump? And obviously there's a lot of pro-Trumpers, but there are people that just talk about him personally, but they never talk about policies and the fact that he's a doer. And I have to tell you, Peter, to tell you the truth, Peter, I think there's a lot of people that aren't affected. As an example, I live, and not live permanently, but I reside in a condo during the summer down the shore. And in that building, there's no threat of crime and a lot of these other things that affect Americans on a daily basis. And they're kind of insulated from all of these things that are occurring today in our cities. And I think that they just aren't considerate and caring of other people. What's up with that, Peter? There was a time you and I always talk about neighbor cared about neighbor. I don't see that anymore,
Well,
Peter.
you have to look at that from a psychological perspective, because the only thing that they know about the president and the only thing that we knew about previous presidents are what we saw in the media and what was put in the
Yep.
newsprint. Now, does that really a true indication of what that person is all about? Last week, you mentioned 5 or 6 things that Trump did for nothing for people, just out of kindness, out of generosity. Nobody ever heard those stories.
No.
Maybe if more of those stories were out, there'd be a less of that effect. But the media doesn't allow that, and then you're affected with Stockholm syndrome, basically brainwashing. That somebody that lives in South Jersey says, "I hate Donald Trump because of his mean tweets." Well, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
That's not a very intelligent position to be in when you're going to be voting for president of the United States.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Peter. Going forward, I hope that Donald Trump surrounds himself with some people that could help write some of his speeches for his rallies. I think he's doing a good job, but for me, it's kind of repetitive. He goes from state to state.
Yeah, I don't
to
even
state.
watch the rallies anymore. I like to see the crowd size and stuff like that. But
Yep.
his speech has kind of been the same for the last 2 years.
Yeah,
it's
it's a little
always
stale,
the
Peter.
same thing. We're going to secure the border.
Right.
We're going to end the wars. We're going to get rid of the corruption. We're going to control the spending. We're going to fix the economy. Hey, I agree with all that, but you're right. It is a little redundant at times.
But why doesn't everybody, Peter, agree with that? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. Listen, lately I've had some time where I've been out to dinner. It costs a fortune to go to dinner today, Peter. It's a fortune. We talked about that a few weeks
It's
ago
unbelievable.
when I mentioned you. I took a bike ride and I stopped at a restaurant on the boardwalk, and it cost $28.15 for breakfast, one person. That's $60 for two. Family, $100.
Crazy.
Peter, who could afford this kind of stuff anymore? So when you hear young people, and you hear it all the time, I'm never going to be able to afford a house. I can understand that. There's no way you could even save any money, let alone pay for all these things.
So I was out and about down at the beach this week, and I was out at a couple of clubs at night. So I order a drink, and I put the money on the bar, and people look at you like there's something wrong with you. Nobody puts money on the bar anymore. But what I see, the point is, I see these kids, they get one for them, and here's the credit card. Where does the money come from at the end of the night? They get their credit card, but it's got to be $200, right? And how do they know if somebody's putting a drink on theirs, or what do they really check the fine print? I mean, I'm a nerd. I check everything. I don't check the fine print of every credit card purchase I make.
but you have to,
Who has
Peter.
the time to do that?
Peter, you have
Especially
to.
when you're at a club.
Yeah.
God only knows, what goes on with those credit cards at those places. These kids they don't count their change. It's like you could do whatever. No wonder they were wearing masks and staying 6 feet away from it. They'll do whatever you tell them to do.
Peter, let me
Every
switch.
drink is $100 tonight. All right, give me 3.
Peter, let me switch gears on you. Right now, the Democratic Party is trying to correct all of the wrongs that they've done. When I say all, to a certain extent, a lot of the wrongs. They came out with this border program, which was the most nonsensical thing I've ever heard, where you could allow 5,000 people to come in every day. I mean, come on, Peter. It's like well over 1 million people a year. So there's a lot of people that then go back and say, yeah, well, the Republicans stopped that. I mean, they stopped that because that didn't make any sense.
Exactly. The bill was done in secret by 2 or 3 guys, and as soon as it was released to the press, the guys that were in the room developing it, guys like Mitch McConnell, said, I'm voting against it. Because once it hit the press, it was so nonsensical. Like, how is that a border security bill if you're letting 5,000 people a day in illegally? That's not security. That's the opposite of security. It's like the Inflation Reduction Act, and inflation went to 19% or 18% or something.
Peter,
These people are morons. We're being led by imbeciles. And don't take my word for it. It's pure common sense. Look at some of these policies.
Yep.
To let all these people in, you don't know who they are. You don't know where they're from. There's what, 85 to 100,000 kids they can't find?
Yeah.
I mean, it just doesn't make sense in any world at all.
So how
and the
could you vote
mendacity
Democratic?
of these
How
people.
could anybody vote for a Democrat right now? Hey, you have to answer. Listen, Lawrence, you're sitting here. Answer the question. How could anybody, you're a young buck, how could anybody vote to the left, assuming and knowing all these things are going on?
I think the first thing they have to do is realize how embarrassed they should be, being that they voted for him the first time. And that's Joe Biden.
Yeah.
The first time they voted for him, he couldn't complete a sentence. And they fought for him and fought for him and fought for him. And all the vitriol over January 6th, where all those people got buffaloed into that Capitol, okay? It was just absolutely crazy. They didn't want to admit anything. And now here it is, 4 years later, and the guy still can't complete a sentence.
Yeah.
What has happened? And what does that mean to guys like Iran and China and enemies of the United States? Do they want to see Joe Biden?
Of course.
Of course they do.
Yeah, they're trying to tell us that that they all want Trump. They don't want Trump
No.
in there because he's going to crack the whip on them, and it's going to get back to, remember when you were a kid in school and the substitute teacher came in? You did whatever you wanted. And then your teacher came back in and was like, okay, back to work.
Yeah.
These guys are going to crack the whip on us. But if you look at the debate, they got the time, they got the place, they got the questions, they got the moderators, they got the padded room they wanted. They got everything they wanted. It was a complete debacle.
It was a
This
bust.
man,
Yep.
and then the interview with George Stephanopoulos, unbiased journalist
Yep.
George Stephanopoulos,
Oh, yeah.
which we know is the biggest joke in
That's
the world.
quotes. Go
right?
ahead.
So you saw the interview. Did that make you feel safer?
No.
That he's got this man's not going to make it? We've been on record on this station over a year. Joe Biden will not be the Democratic presidential nominee. And it's a disgrace.
Yeah, they have problems
Yeah.
on.
And then they're going to
on-
lecture us about democracy after all that.
Yeah, Peter, let me ask you.
Unbelievable.
You know what bothers me, though? Let me ask you a question. Let's assume Trump was able to take office. To get things in the economy back on track, that's not going to be a 15-minute fix. I mean, you have to become energy independent again. You think that's going to happen in a 3 or 6 month period? You have
No.
to start drilling. I don't know what you do with the pipeline. How do you become energy independent? Until you have energy costs lower for transportation and things of that nature, the economy isn't going to change like that, Peter. What are your thoughts on that?
It's going to be a tough road to hoe. So you got to hope that the Wall Street moguls jump on board. If they jump on board with what we're doing, when Trump gets back in, theoretically trying to bring inflation down, trying to get interest rates back down, trying to make the world a more affordable place for all the people. If you get corporate America on board with that, we can make it happen, just like we did last time. Trump came in. He says he had the best economy in the world. Well, I don't know exactly how good Rome's economy was there, and what was it, 2 or 10 BC? Somebody tells me they had a pretty good economy for the time.
Yeah.
But during Trump's times, we had low
things
interest
were great.
rates. We had low inflation.
Yeah.
We had a great job market, lowest unemployment rate for blacks, women, Hispanics. But a lot of good things, kind of like what they call a Goldilocks economy, where everything's working in your favor.
Yeah.
We can get back to that, but we're going to need everybody to buy in. The media will not, and they're already, the political bureaucracy is already doing maneuvers inside Hollywood, so to speak, inside Washington, to disrupt Trump's presidency. They're already making plans to
Yep.
see how they're going to attack him if he was lucky enough to win, instead of just going on board and saying, hey, why don't we all work together and see what we can do?
Yeah, good luck with that. Hey, Lawrence, let me ask you a question. I hate mentioning on this show Joy Reid, but she came out the other day, and this is publicly aired, saying that I would vote for Joe Biden if he was in a coma before I would vote for Donald Trump. I mean, honest to God, she has a constituency of people that listen to her. Therefore, this is what someone who has the airways and has the ability to get to people's minds is saying.
Heck.
I mean, I think it's terrible, boys.
She's a bigot. She's an anti-Semitic person. She should not be on TV. I think Comcast should be disgraced that they have her on TV. If you want another black woman in that position because you want to check a box, that's fine with me. But why have a bigot? Why have a hateful, resentful person like that on TV? How does it help the country to have a man in a coma as president? She's a moron, an imbecile, a bigot, and an anti-Semite. That's Joy Reid.
I'm coming to you,
Well
Lawrence.
said. Well said, Peter. Thank you, Barry, for this one. It's absolutely mind-boggling, and I think eventually people, even though they don't want to, are going to have to start taking some form of accountability in that if you don't understand what's happening in the country, you cannot just go and check a box because you've checked it that way for the last 20 years. You're doing yourself a huge disservice. One thing that I feel is happening that maybe Trump has the ability to do is that he takes a complex issue and he explains it so a toddler can understand it. It's not the best use of verbiage, but I'll give you an example. He says that Iran would have never been able to send Hezbollah in to Israel because they had no money under his term, because no one was allowed to deal with them.
Hold on. Hold that thought. Peter, why don't you explain to Lawrence what your interpretation of what no money was and how they acquired all this
it's very
money.
simple.
They were broke at one point.
Very simple. No rockets.
Exactly.
No hooties, booties, and schmooties.
Yep.
Why? No money.
No money.
Hamas, quiet. West Bank, quiet. Hezbollah. Nasrallah, the head of Hezbollah, didn't come out of his hole for 4 years. The minute he would have showed his face, a rocket would have hit him
And
right in
that's
the head.
Exactly.
Now, all of a sudden, he's everywhere. They want to stop the leaders of Hamas. What you got to do to Qatar? They're in a hotel right now. I'll take you to them. Fly me down to Washington. I'll show you where they're at. You go kill them.
Mhm.
Matter of fact, give me a gun. I'll go kill them if you're behind me.
Of course.
But they act like, well, we don't know where these guys. It's all propaganda. It's all nonsense.
Well, here's my question to you guys then. Knowing all this, how do you possibly unite this country when all you do is not have the media on your side, propaganda, and false reporting? How are you actually going to unite this country? Because I have to tell you something, Peter. If Donald Trump becomes president, I think his second round is going to be equally as difficult as the first round.
I believe there'll be riots in the streets.
Yeah,
I really
maybe,
do.
maybe.
The brown shirt Antifa wing of the Democrat Party will show its face just like they did last time. Do you know they attacked a courthouse in Portland for over 100 straight days? Every night.
Nobody did anything about it.
Thousands of federal officers injured. Do you know they attacked the White House? Trump had to go into the bunker. There were over 200 Secret Service agents injured. No one arrested.
Nobody.
No insurrectionists
Nobody.
attacked the White House. It makes you wonder what's going on here. We got a two-tiered system of justice.
Crazy.
It's got to end.
Lawrence, if you don't have police protection and if you don't have law and order and you have anarchy, there's no way society can exist. I mean, it just doesn't make any sense to me. We have to go back to the old times when you fund people appropriately. I think school teachers, maybe they need to be funded better because we need better qualified people in those positions. The same thing for officers. To me, I want the best qualified guys. I'm not looking for cheapy guys because if you find cheapy guys, then you get cheapy decisions, and cheapy decisions lead to problems. So to me, these are people that help orchestrate and keep society
more
in
so
order,
than
Peter.
money, I think. How did we get the 4-minute mile? Everybody said nobody will ever run a 4-minute mile. You know how we got there? Competition.
Bang.
Competition. School choice is the way to improve
Come on,
education,
Pete.
not
Talk
money.
about it.
Right, Larry?
I love it.
Yeah,
I
but
love it.
in regards to officers, I mean, you need the best qualified people. These guys are making decisions that affect life and death.
Mhm.
So you need people. And I have to tell you something, Peter. You can't put these guys in the position to get sued. They're not going to make every decision that's perfect. They make split-shot decisions. So, come on, you hit a golf shot. You know what I mean? Not every shot lands on the green. I mean, it's the way life goes. You expect these guys, and what's worse is nowadays, these guys go on for a civil affair at a house or something of that nature, and the next thing you know, they get shot at. Nobody ever had these problems before when we were growing
That's the
up.
truth. And I spent some time with some of the Atlantic City police over the weekend. We love our police in Atlantic City. Second only to the Philadelphia police, which are my number one best police force in the country. But these are all young kids, Barry. These are all young kids. And you can't expect a 22, 23, 24-year-old. He's a cop now. He could be in any situation, life and death, domestic, anything. And you can't expect him to make good decisions. That takes time. You got to cultivate good police officers, and they got to learn from the guys above them. So they're tough situations. I think we need to pay our police officers a lot more. If you start them at $100,000 a year, you get a better quality of person.
That's my point.
And they're going to make better judgments.
I love it.
That's my point, Lawrence, as a young guy, I mean, what are the things that are going on in society today, right now today, that you find different than 15 or 20 years ago when you were a younger buck?
It's an absolutely whole different world, and it's changed a lot in just the last 10 years. And I'm only 39. From 29 to 39, I think, has been like that bell curve where it just goes straight up, that hockey stick looking bell curve where everything is absolutely changed. And just to touch on some of the points that you guys have mentioned earlier, we need to get our best and brightest, not necessarily involved in leadership all the time, but just involved.
Yep.
And then from there, we can work on supporting them. Yep. You guys mentioned in the show earlier today about, Kim Stewart mentioned about she's going to raise money, she's going to do this. Not one time did she mention, like, hey, we don't even have enough Republican board workers to man all the polling districts.
Yeah, that's an issue.
We preach election integrity, and we don't even have enough people in every district in Camden County to make sure that there's at least one Republican in the voting district.
Yeah.
Well, if there's one guy that can solve that problem, it's Media Joe. I think Media
There we
Joe,
go.
we got to tell him to put his cape on.
Oh, is he awake over there?
Yep, we just woke him up. You heard his name.
Yeah, texting his girlfriend.
All
Go
right,
ahead,
check in, Media Joe. Can you talk to us, or is your mic off?
I mean, so you mean Camden County alone, or South Jersey in
Everywhere.
general, really?
But we're starting Camden County since it's our, since we're
Uncle
local.
Barry, I think we caught him sleeping. He was selling houses.
No. So, I mean,
How many houses moved?
Detention.
Today.
You get a detention. That's
Detention.
all. Exactly.
I mean, it's like what Kim was kind of saying. It starts at the grassroots. We need to get people involved with school board and just actually want to get involved. Do you see a lot nowadays? A lot of keyboard warriors. See a lot of people that just want to get involved on social media, complain or post something, but then when it comes to the groundwork, they lack.
Yep.
So that's what we really have to build, is people actually wanting to go door to door, wanting to go out and say.
Yeah, that's a good point, because everybody says to me, what can we do? How do we get out of this? Hey, dude, you got to figure it out like I figured it out. You got to read stuff. You got to become informed. You got to learn who to trust, who not to trust.
You need to take action.
You read the Philadelphia Inquirer and the New York Times. They've been lying to you for probably your whole life, but surely the last 10 years, you're going to pick that newspaper up again? I'm not. I mean, I wouldn't use it for the, to line the puppy's cage. Yeah. I mean, it's just, it's a rag. It's just not.
Or just read both sides instead of just reading that paper and taking it as facts. You read something from the Philadelphia Inquirer, but then you read something from like Fox News or something more conservative news outlet. Then you develop your ideas based off that, kind of come in the middle of the way.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes I think Fox News is trying to sell Geico insurance and other things. I'm
they have
not
a
so
business
sure.
too, Peter. It's a business for them
exactly. Too. I'm not so sure that they're 100% on the Constitutional Republic page as we are. So watch yourself with Fox News.
I'll tell you what bothers me, not to switch gears on you guys, and I mean this. There are so many lunatics walking the streets today. I mean, I had a conversation with a guy in the gym the other day, and he was telling me about proceeding with new type of interest. And I have to tell you, we don't have insane asylums anymore. I don't see where are you putting all these crazy people. You at least have to rehabilitate them. That, along with drugs, Peter, to me, is a scary combination.
I think I got three of them in the room with me right now. I'm not sure of that.
Two.
But, did these guys just get out of Vancouver or what's going on?
Yeah, so.
No, we got a great crew. It's been a great
mental
show.
Health. We're ignoring that. Yeah. We are not addressing
biggest dropped ball
Yep.
probably in our lifetime.
Yep, I
mental
think
health.
so. So any thoughts on that, Peter? How are you going to address that? I mean, all kidding aside, You have to have answers. We always talk about fixing
Well,
things.
what happens, and this happened during the Reagan administration because he wanted to cut the federal budget and reduce the size of government. If you notice the last jobs report, it was a good jobs report, but over 65% of the jobs created were government jobs. So the government's getting bigger when the government should actually be getting smaller, especially in an inflationary environment. You want to reduce the size of government. You don't want to grow it. It just makes the deficits higher. But it's just really tough for kids today. I don't know how they make it in this world today. And
better education, Peter.
Yeah, well,
you need
that's
better
the-
education,
that's
better
the-
parenting.
Boy, and if we can only get the minorities to start to realize that by forcing their kids to go to the public schools, the failing public schools, it's a cycle of failure.
I agree.
And the only way that's going to change is if these kids get to sit next to my kids at an Abington High School or a Jenkintown High School or a Penn Charter. And what you'll find is they are quite as capable, quite as smart, and quite as energetic about being leaders, about being people that can change our society, but they need to give them the right opportunities.
But Peter, let me tell you something. That was started many moons ago where you were busing kids into a different neighborhood. Now, I know that I did some construction work in Roxborough. Roxborough High is basically all minority. So there was white, I guess, there. I don't know where those white kids went to school, but there doesn't seem like there's that many there. I don't know if busing has actually worked or not worked, because if you don't assimilate people of different colors and it ends up all one color, you might as well leave them in the neighborhood they came from.
The demographics of the city have changed so much, and right now I think it's open enrollment, so any kid can go to any school that he wants. Now, obviously, there's limits on places like Masterman and these highly educational schools, the ones that have the best curriculums and send the most kids to college. They have limits. But there is a resurgence of some charter schools. Teacher unions are going to fight you the whole way. It's going to take money out of their pocket. But the fact of the matter is they just haven't gotten the job done. I mean, they closed their schools for 2 years. For what? For no reason at all, and put an entire generation behind the 8 ball. I couldn't imagine going through my life not knowing the times table. So anyway, I guess that's the difference between different class of people. But in order to move up in class, you have to have that opportunity or you'll never get there.
But, Peter, here's my point. If you are actually dumbing down kids on purpose, you better consider trade schools, because these kids are not going to be the doctors, the lawyers, and the professional people that you want them to be. So, therefore, there's great money today in the trades. And I think that we've seen so many of these trade schools close. I think between a sane asylum and trade schools, we have to regenerate those thoughts.
Well, everybody wants to be a Bill Gates or a Steve Jobs today. Everybody drives a fancy car. Everybody wants to wear a Rolex. Everybody wants to live in a big mansion and have that beach house and everything else. Life doesn't work like that. It's not the way it works.
And I got to tell you
Works through
something.
hard work, dedication. I mean, maybe a person, 1 out of 100 million, get lucky and hit a lottery. The rest of us work our butts off in order to get ahead.
Yeah, and I just have to tell you, before I ask you to close this out, Peter, I watch television exclusively, not exclusive for just the ideas for our shows, but I use it as a strong basis. And I have to tell you, Peter, I am so tired of leftists that come on these shows and kind of try and insinuate that everything is okay and everything's going to be fine when they know differently. I am sick and tired of it, Peter. It doesn't make sense. It's not helping society. It's all theatrics to me on television.
That's an interesting point, and I agree with you 100%. So you have to ask yourself, are these people just liars, or are they that out of touch? That's stupid.
No, they're not out of touch, Peter.
Well, then they
know
know
what's
that
going on. They're educated people. They're delivering
exactly.
the news.
It's all it's propaganda.
That's right. So, Peter, why don't you close this out? We had a great session.
Hey, we had a great session. We had a great show today. We got a great crew in here with Larry and Joe and Uncle Barry.
Yep.
It's been a pleasure being on the radio today, and we're looking forward to next week. Please tune in again next week, and we'll try and give you all the information that's on the streets, fair to report.
Great job, boys.
Thank you, guys.
Good.
Go get them.